In this video, I wanted to reveal what keto and intermittent fasting has revealed to me over the past specifically 3 weeks. So stick with it, you'll hear some bone honest truth and also some revelations and realizations. Welcome to the Liz and Scats channel. Hello everybody, I'm Liz. I am a clinical holistic therapist, yoga and meditation teacher, and for the first time on this channel I want to reveal that for the majority of my life I have suffered with depression, anxiety and panic attacks too, and how this has affected me during my keto and intermittent fasting. If you want to hear more from us, myself and my lovely husband Scats, and maybe even Pippity Scatterdog, then please subscribe and click on the little bell, and then you'll get all the notifications for whenever we release a new video. Thank you. So, we always say don't start a video with so, but in this case, a deep breath is required. I want to be brutally honest with you about the way that I've been feeling for the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's been very, very difficult for me with the depression that I mentioned in the introduction. So in researching the latest video that we were hoping to do, either today or tomorrow, I sort of discovered and learned and was researching quite deeply, and I found some very interesting scientific facts about the brain and addiction and how it deals with sugar and carbohydrates. I have suffered from depression for the majority of my life. I couldn't pinpoint the exact beginning, but it's safe to say that from puberty onwards, 11, 12, 13, I started experiencing difficulties. At school, my grades started to fall. I was feeling very much not like myself anymore, the happy, chipper little kid. And I started to get into this sort of introverted way. Didn't feel like I could express myself well. I became very, very good at, as many people who have depression do, I became very good at hiding it so that other people didn't see, because it just wasn't in my family and nobody really understood it. I didn't have the words or the vocabulary to be able to express what was going on. So by the time I got to about 17 years old, I was starting to, what I consider to be self-harming, but actually it was self-medicating. So I was drinking alcohol and taking drugs from that time onwards, and it just got progressively worse and worse and worse. Whilst I was doing the drugs and the alcohol, I felt better. I didn't feel like I was this sort of shy, introverted little girl, that I was actually able to communicate and be the life and soul of the party, and it was fantastic and I loved it. So I kept on doing it, and it became more and more and more. And in the meantime, my depression was getting worse and worse because of the substances I was abusing. By the time I reached my mid-20s, I'd had a string of bad relationships. I'd left school and I was in a real kind of dark place, in a bad relationship. And my self-medication was probably at its worst by that point, in that I was in a bad relationship, I was using a lot of drugs, and I was also using a lot of alcohol. It got to the darkest moment of my life, and I actually attempted suicide. I narrowly escaped being put into a mental institution for 28 days on hold, but for my partner at the time, who persuaded me that I didn't need to and I could go home with him, which of course was the bad thing, the wrong idea. However, it's then that I was finally diagnosed with depression and anxiety and panic attack. So from that moment onwards, I was not only self-medicating with recreational drugs and alcohol, but I was also being medicated pharmacologically by my doctor at the same time. And I have been on every single antidepressant known to man, from Prozac to sertraline to Seroxat. I even was prescribed barbiturates at one point, many of which these drugs have actually left me physically and emotionally scarred and damaged. it's affected my life with my husband and my family, and forever, and will never change. From this moment on, now I had a label on my shoulder. It became a little bit easier for me to become the victim, to be self-pitying. And so whenever I used to drink too much or take too many drugs, I would always say, it's because I'm depressed. It's because I'm depressed. And finally, by the time I reached the end of my 20s, I was not in a very good way at all, quite sick and tired of being sick and tired. But I did meet a man who was totally unsuitable for me, but he did leave me with one parting gift, and that was my beautiful son, Oscar. From that moment onward, onwards, I felt a purpose in my life for the first time. Like I had a reason to be here, that somebody loved me, for nothing else. And so I started to move forwards and to start to heal myself properly by taking a good look at myself and receiving the help from talking therapy and from psychologists that I needed all those years. The purpose of me telling you all of this is because I realized that for many, many years I had been using crutches to hold myself together, to help me walk forwards in my life. Now, maybe I wouldn't have been able to survive without them. I don't know, and I will never know that. But I now realize that one of the crutches that I held on to was food. And as a result, carbohydrates and sugar, which I now know are as addictive as some of the substances that I have ingested throughout my life, I felt it really important to talk to you about the way I've been feeling for the last 3 weeks, which felt like when I gave up drugs and when I gave up smoking. And I think that the depression that's come in the last 3 weeks is a really important lesson. And I wanted to share this experience with you just in case anybody else had been feeling the same way, because it's something that you don't hear about when you're on a weight loss program, and particularly on keto and intermittent fasting. We are addicted to carbohydrates. I am addicted to carbohydrates. I know this now because the reward center in your brain, every time I ate carbohydrates of any description, bread, pasta, rice, sugar, I felt good. What I didn't realize, that because the reward is slightly smaller than some of the more dangerous and scary and well-known drugs, we don't realize that it's actually happening. And until we actually stop eating these carbohydrates and sugars, we don't realize how much a part of our psyche that they are, and how they've actually ingrained themselves into our everyday lives. From the 50s and the 60s, after the post-war period, growth, strength and economy, food has been easily accessible. We've found new and fabulous ways to improve how we grow food, and carbohydrates have become a larger and larger and larger portion on our plates. From our breakfast cereal or toast or waffles in the morning, to our sandwich, to our biscuit with our sandwich, to the slice of cake with tea in the afternoon, to our potato heavy mop up the gravy with the bread dinners in the evening, and then snacks in the evening, popcorn, crisps. They've become an integral part of our lives, and they were an integral part of my life. And I realise now that they were just another crutch. Now I don't have them anymore. I am bereft at their absence. I'm not saying that I weep for them at night, or, that I'm in grief for them, but there's definitely something missing. There's something not here, that was here before, that was helping me to feel secure and comforted. And now that that's not here anymore, I'm really starting to feel it. And it feels like when I gave up drugs, and it feels like when I gave up smoking, and it feels like something is missing. And the key word there is gave up. I gave it up, implying that I'm missing something. We are beings that are still quite far behind to catch up with the current food market. We can survive on just fat, burning fat for fuel. We don't necessarily need carbohydrates. So finding ourselves without them is obviously some sort of habit or addiction. I grew up being told breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and we had a third of a pint of milk when we were at school, in primary school, because it was to build calcium for our bones and things like that to keep us healthy, vitamin D. Then suddenly during the 70s and the 80s it was low fat, we needed to lose weight, everything started to happen in that way. But we were still told to eat a high fibre diet of whole foods and whole grains in order to stay healthy. So it's ingrained in my mind that this is what we needed to eat. And eating 3 times a day was ingrained in my mind as well. So I would eat because I felt it was the right thing to do. It was a habit. We'd get up. I spoke to Scats this morning about this very subject. I would wake up in the morning and feel like I had to have something to eat because it was the best meal of the day. It's the ingrained thing that's happened. Now, this freeing of conditioning that keto and intermittent fasting has given us has led to questioning our very upbringing and our behavioural patterns during that upbringing and since we've left home and since we've become adults, and how we treat our bodies. So carbs, particularly breads and popcorn for me, I love popcorn, had become a real crutch and a nice little comforting blanket for me. And now I feel kind of naked and bare and without my little creature comforts of food for that reward system. I'm even sitting here today with a duvet over me to make me feel more comfortable as I talk to you about this difficult subject. So the last 3 weeks have been very difficult. I've kind of plateaued a little bit as well, which never really helps, so you feel good about yourself. So what I want to share with you now is how I feel I need to progress forwards. I'll keep updating you on this because I think it's going to change and morph as we go along. So I will keep you updated if I feel that something else is needed or needs to be added. 2 years ago, I went to India and became a yoga teacher, and I feel that I've lost a little bit of that training. I haven't been keeping up with my practice as often as I should. And I feel that meditation and yoga are going to bring me to a state where I can think clearly and meditate and get answers and be supported in that way, in a more wholesome and easy way that isn't going to do me any harm whatsoever. Also, I feel that the support of my husband and my family has been really, really key and important during this whole experience. I said to my husband today whilst we were walking, I'm trying, meaning that I was trying to not feel so depressed for him. But I also feel that I'm trying to him and that he has to constantly be chivvying me along and helping me up and drying my tears, as there's been a lot of those in the last few weeks. There's an amazing article I read a few years ago. A Native American shaman was interviewed regarding what Westerners describe as depression and mental health or mental illness. They don't have this in their tribes. They don't understand what we mean. And they would say that somebody who was upset and down would be taken off with a shaman and have some sort of conversion and become a new pupated self where you become something greater and better than you were before. And I prefer to live with that diagnosis, that what's happening to me right now is I'm changing from the person I was to a person that knows how to deal without the crutch or without the crutches that I've had to use throughout my life. If any of you have any comments or any suggestions or just to want to talk to me about your experiences, please know that I am here, Scats is here, we're here for you, and that's the whole purpose of this channel. All we wanted to do was to share our experiences, whether they were good or bad. These past weeks have been really, really difficult for me. But I felt it was very, very important, thanks to Scats's insistence actually, to speak to you about this and be very candid. And I hope that in some way, even if one person is helped by this, that we can work through this together. Thank you very much.